I never meant to stay up so late that night, but something about it kept me glued to the screen. It was a Friday, the perfect end to a long week. I'd had a couple of drinks in, and on a whim, I decided to catch up on my favorite Twitch channel, a spooky gaming streamer named Ethan. His streams were always a mix of humor and terror, showcasing horror games with eerie atmospheres and jump scares that made me laugh and scream at the same time. But that night, things took a dark and unexpected turn. Ethan was playing an obscure indie horror game called Whispers in the Dark. It had gained a cult following for its unsettling narrative and bizarre visual style. I'd heard whispers about it before. Viewers said it felt almost too real at times. I was skeptical, but I couldn't look away. As the game started, the graphics had a grainy texture, like an old VHS tape, and the protagonist, a nameless character, found themselves alone in a decaying house with nothing but a flashlight. Ethan joked about the game's uncanny atmosphere, the way the shadows twisted unnaturally, and the eerie, whimpering noises echoing through the house. I laughed along, but something started to gnaw at the back of my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that the game seemed familiar. The layout of the house, the creaky floorboards, even the whispering voices in the background. It felt personal, like I had seen it before. I brushed it off as a coincidence, but the unease stuck with me. Ethan's reactions, which had been entertaining, began to change. His laughter started to fade into nervous chuckles. His eyes flickered like he was seeing something beyond the screen, something just out of reach. I leaned closer to the screen, caught between anxiety and anticipation. "Did you hear that?" he muttered, peering into the virtual darkness. A strange sound echoed through my speakers, but it wasn't part of the game. A whisper, so faint I almost didn't catch it. My blood ran cold, and I glanced around my dimly lit room. When I looked back at Ethan, his face had gone pale, eyes wide. "Did you guys hear that?" he asked, his voice shaky for the first time. The chat exploded with comments, some claiming it was part of the game, while others speculated something was wrong. Ethan shrugged it off, attributing it to the game's ambience, but I could hear the tension building in his voice. He was no longer the confident, joking streamer I was used to. His posture stiffened, and his eyes darted nervously around the screen. The game itself was subtly changing too. The lights flickered on and off in the house, shadows moved in the corners of the frame, and at one point, the protagonist stumbled across a mirror. The reflection, it wasn't right. The face staring back was distorted, hollow, like it didn't belong there. Ethan muttered, "This is getting weird," and I couldn't disagree. The whole vibe had shifted. What started as a funny stream was now oppressive, suffocating. I felt like we were both trapped in that house, breathing in the same air, waiting for something to happen. Then came the moment that stopped my heart. The character was rummaging through an old cupboard when the lights in Ethan's room flickered. My own lights were steady, but my stomach dropped. Ethan, visibly startled, pulled back from his desk. "Did you guys see that?" His voice was thin. "Panic." Cat, one of his mods, typed, "It's probably just the power, Ethan. Don't panic." That's when I saw it. Something in the frame of his webcam. In the shadows behind him, a dark figure barely visible, stood still. "Guys," Ethan said, his voice low, "I think someone's in my room." He looked toward the door off screen, his eyes wide with fear. The chat erupted in a frenzy, urging him to check, to turn around. My instincts screamed for me to turn off the stream, but I couldn't. I was frozen, helpless, staring at the screen. And then the figure stepped closer, fully illuminated by the glow of Ethan's monitor. It was tall and thin, its clothes ragged, its face a grotesque mask of distortion. A twisted, mocking smile curved on its lips. It wasn't human. "Ethan, get out!" I screamed, though I knew he couldn't hear me. As the figure reached toward him, the screen flickered for a split second, then went black. Just like that, the stream ended. The sound of static filled the silence. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I tried to calm myself, assuming it was a prank, a technical glitch, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. The figure hadn't been an act. It was too real, too raw. I frantically searched for Ethan's social media, hoping for a sign that he was okay, but there was nothing. His accounts were quiet. His last tweet from earlier that day, announcing the stream. Hours passed, then days, no updates. I checked his Twitter obsessively, his Discord, even his YouTube channel, but there was no word. It was like Ethan had vanished into thin air. I retreated from Twitch, unable to shake the dark feeling gnawing at me. I thought it was over. I tried to move on, but then, one night, I couldn't sleep. The nagging curiosity got the best of me, and I opened my laptop. There, staring back at me, was a new stream, Whispers After Dark. I clicked on it. The screen flickered. At first, nothing but static, but then, for a brief moment, I saw Ethan's face, hollow, sunken, his eyes wide with terror, surrounded by the same suffocating darkness that had haunted his last broadcast. The chat filled with panic, but none of them saw what I did. The figure was there too, lurking behind him in the the shadows. It whispered something, its voice a soft, garbled mess. I couldn't understand it, but the tone was unmistakable. It was calling to me. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, like they were coming from within my own mind. I could feel myself slipping. My fingers trembled as I typed into the chat. Ethan, are you there? Please, reply if you can hear me. The chat exploded with urgency, everyone waiting for a response, but Ethan remained silent. Then, through the static, I heard it, a voice, broken, choked, almost drowned beneath the noise. It was Ethan's voice, barely recognizable, pleading, "Help me, I can't escape." And just like that, the feed cut out. Only static remained. I slammed my laptop shut, my heart racing. I knew I had crossed a line. I had reached out to something I couldn't take back. The whispers, they were everywhere. They followed me, crept into my dreams, into the corners of my waking thoughts. That figure, it was always there, watching, waiting. Weeks passed, and the nightmares got worse. And then one night, a post appeared on Ethan's account, a stream scheduled for that night. I couldn't stay away. I joined, despite every warning bell ringing in my